a 10 can only be fully realized when we're literally walking in their shoes and feeling the burdens that they feel, the expectations, the urgency, all the other stresses, demands, anxiety, and everything else. And so trying to go out of your way to put yourself in their shoes is a very powerful experience, and it changes the way that you see things. You're no longer in this world where you're needing to be justified. We've decided we're going this way, and then we'll look for the facts and the figures and the things that justify us continuing to do it this way. But literally opening up that vulnerability and saying, no, let's go out and expose ourselves to the truth, to the reality, and let's work with that for a change. And that element, then of course, you get that same mentality with those other three directions, but as it pertains to the customers, that's great. So this stuff's already in your, it's already in your blood, and of course part of that is what you mentioned earlier. We're very good at doing this with the customers. There are so many for-profit entities that are so much further behind where you are as far as staying in tune with your customers. And they have a profit motive, which is incredible. But again, the willingness to really say, these customers and these people who receive our services are number one, and we really want to see it through their eyes, is an incredibly admirable thing. And there's such great knowledge, intelligence that comes from that. And then when you begin to look at your own internal reports and your peers and others with that same framework, you can begin to see the power of an organization like that, right? That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Next group.
Yeah, I liked number 3, option 2 for my group especially. In a restaurant you already have a division in the front of the house and the back of the house. So to have those groups where you can mix people that wouldn't be working on a certain problem together to come up with a solution, I think is very important.
Yeah.
To throw in some cooks trying to figure out a server issue and some servers trying to figure out a cook issue, because the servers aren't in tune with what the customer wants, so you'll get some better answers that way. And I would add probably even, let the group kind of pick the issue. Let's talk about our issues, what's the top 3 issue, and let's pick one to fix. Because my idea of the top issue might not be theirs, but they might not know something I don't know. That's a daily, irritant that you just get through it and I never hear about it.
Yeah. So. It's interesting, and we'll still open it up here in a second. It's interesting as you mentioned that, Jeff. First of all, I was interested to hear if you point that out, because a kitchen is something that in some respects it's so chronological. There's this element to it where this part doesn't deal with this part, and yet they are all so critical to that end product, right? And so getting those to where, if you imagine the person back furthest in the kitchen, the person close to the customer, if they had a full understanding of the outside triangles of each other, the potential for collaboration and innovation, potentially. They can begin to look at new ways, kind of like Laura did, evaluating, hey, let's ask for this other field, and let's do these other things. The other element I thought was, well, that's a great one. I love that, because you're always dealing with those 2 different perspectives and mindsets. Right. Okay, let's keep going.
The one that I picked for my team right now is number 4, the biggest headache. So there's 5 of us total. That includes me. So each of my team members, have very different job duties and descriptions, but yet we all affect or impact each other in the ultimate work. So I think us being able to each be able to share something that may not be going correctly, or a big headache that's in our particular little land, and be able to talk about that as a bigger group and be able to say, well, if I did this a little bit differently, or if I, that drastically change the dynamics of things. So.
Excellent. Great.
And I chose the same one because for my team. Like Sarah, I have a very small team that does a lot of things. And they each have different outside triangles. And I think it would be important going into meetings like this where, okay, we're going to choose the biggest headache, but to let the rest of the team know, okay, your biggest headache will be on, it'll be on for the next meeting. And so that way you can go through it, because everybody's got something.
Yeah. Yeah, you choose the rhythm that works within it. Now it's interesting, because I go back over here for a second. And early on, one of the things you wanted to modify was, well, we don't want this to be too negative. Let's find a way to bring in some positive elements to it. And I respect that. And there is a temptation sometimes. I actually am a big fan of the headache one as well. But if you think about it, the tone can go in 2 very different directions with that kind of a meeting, can't it? It can very turn into just a complaint session, where we're just whining, and then we get preconditioned to start seeing the headaches in everything that we do. And so that's one where, if you notice, Louise and Alan both were very careful to manage the purpose of what it is that we're doing, why we're doing this, and they really modeled the way. And so what ends up happening is, rather than feeling feeling like this is a morgue that we're going to just watch this morbid stuff and these deaths. This is a hospital where we're coming to rejuvenate and get healthy and grow. And you're the one that determines what the tone of that meeting will be. It requires a great deal of leadership to really help them understand. The purpose of this is to deal with your headache because you've got a lot of people around you that want to know about it and have the capacity to help you build it. So you're bringing this because when you bring up a headache, you're giving us all an opportunity to move our team forward. And that tone is incredibly important to establish because, again, you've all been part of these where these things, after a while, they just feel like, well, it's just a buzzkill. It's like we're going to a big headache again. It's like leave with a headache. And it just gets worse and worse. And so it's very important that, again, and again, at the end of the day, right, you can have a meeting about headaches with a what or with a what? An inward or an outward mindset. So again, very important that you establish the tone. This is fantastic. This is great. I hope that you continue to think about some of these things. And again, this is part of that step number one, the outside. It's part of step number one. It's about part of learning these outside triangles. Okay?
You know, and something else that we talked about really quickly was we identified, Kim and I, that we've actually already been doing number 7, fostering cooperation with another team. About a year ago when I started, I got together with the prior finance director, and we decided to have like a monthly team meeting where we literally gathered every member of our team together for an hour once a month. And it was an opportunity for us to be able to job share and talk about what each other's does, because development and finance work so much hand in hand. You know, we touch the money when it comes in and we talk to the donors, but they process everything over on their side. And so it was an opportunity to be able to, you know, talk about those things and, you know, talk about systems and processes and how we could streamline things and make all of that go so much smoother. And so it's been a great opportunity, you know, since Kim and some of her new members of the team to come on, because they've had some new ideas, so we're already trying to figure things out a little bit differently. But, I mean, we've been able to, I mean, in the past 10 months or so, we've been able to, I mean, I think positively impact some of those things that are behind the scenes that's making both of our departments run.
That's great.
Better, so.
Sometimes just the fact that you continue on with a conversation, and those are kind of, let's get on the same page sort of a meeting. Let's make sure that we know what's going on, and that's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah,
Stuff comes out
because,
of it.
I mean, you know, her staff members didn't necessarily know what my staff members didn't, and vice versa, and how those things related.
The other thing too, I'll just add to that, because it did streamline and improve people's understanding of why we were doing things the way we were doing them from one department to the other, because it wasn't really clear, like, why would we put all of the deposits on this sheet or whatever, or code it this way, or
Right.
Yeah, a lot of good things can come out of that. I mean, it's really the source of a lot of these programs, and you kind of alluded to something else. When you get into that teach and communicate portion, you get into the why of the what. And the more of the whys that people understand all the way through the organization, you're empowering them now to do something with that knowledge and information, and be more alive to the fact that there is a reason behind some of these things. And they feel a desire to play a greater role in that. As you go through those meetings, you know, and all we're doing, we're talking about systematizing and taking what you're doing there now and saying, all right, let's figure out, you know, the areas where we have this, we're on the same page and we interact with one another. And then in some respects, we're actually taking it a step further and saying, I don't just want to know about your outside triangles as it pertains to the things that we're doing and how we're engaged and involved. We want to kind of know about all the other stuff, because you'll find that there's room for increased collaboration and understanding and knowledge. In a minimum, you feel a greater appreciation for the time and effort they're putting into what it is that's helping you, knowing that they have all these other things going on. Again, I'd say that there's so many of these things that you're naturally kind of already wandering into. What we're talking about here is systematizing and institutionalizing, and then following through with those other steps and things as well, right? This is great. I appreciate the seriousness, the earnestness as you wandered into this. And I love the fact that with few exceptions, you're also thinking, yeah, I'd probably do this, and this is why we do that. I mean, there's something about this that's almost second nature to you, which is really fun to see. So well done. All right. So again, that's the template there for understanding and really getting us into a collaborative environment. And again, all we talked about here, these meetings, this is just step number 1, right? Then there really has to be that step back and that need to give and think about things collectively. And then going back and then continuing to check in and see if this is actually making the impact that we hoped that it would. All right, we're going to go into inside-outside reporting. And you know, in some respects, we've already set this part up. We've kind of had some of these conversations already. So it's not that we'll breeze through this. But again, what does the outside, inside out framework suggest about reporting practices? Okay? And again, it's a little bit of a leading question. Obviously, in the past, in the typical way, when you say, what reporting do you have to do at your work or whatever else, we tend to think of, first of all, formal reporting, a report or actual sit-down meeting explaining things. And we usually tend to think of it in which direction? Who do we usually report to? Yeah, even just like that. You thought there was a trick question to that one, didn't you? You have to be careful. There's no trick. That was as simple as it sounded. When we talk about who do you report to, right off the bat, the first person that pops into your mind, right? The manager. Let's think about that for a second. Somebody asks you the question, who do you report to? Think how strange that would be. You say, well, I report to my customers, I report to my peers that I work with, I report to my direct reports, and I report to my manager. Well, that sounds like a lot of work. That doesn't sound like a fun place to work at all. All right, obviously there's additional explanation to it. We'll talk about the definition of reporting. But at the end of the day, if we're serious about seeing them as people, then wouldn't it behoove us and be important to us to know that the positive things we're trying to do for them are actually achieving the results that we're hoping for? And wouldn't it be important for us, for them to know that we're actually trying to follow through on some of those things that we committed to do, as we see them as people, whether it be through collaborative or whatever other environment, okay? So that's all we're suggesting here. All right, so we normally report up here to the manager. Obviously, we're talking about 360 here. So let's go ahead and take a look at this here. A customer, okay, so this is an end user. Somebody receiving the benefits of the great work that he does. What might outside, inside out reporting toward a customer look like? And just for the sake of simplicity, so you're not having to overthink, I'll even take away the outside, inside out, just what would reporting look like to a customer? We were going to report to our customers, to our end users.
I think, like in our programs, we do annual surveys, and so once those are all compiled, I think that would be good for them to see those. You know, we give out that results to them, so they can see how their site that they're attending has been doing.
Yeah. I think this level, next to reporting to a manager, this is the next most natural. And I think most organizations do this to some extent. They don't always think of it in terms of reporting. But do you regularly interface to some extent with the people that you're serving, letting them know about the things that you're trying to do to serve them? Right? Now again, we have these rings, these concentric circles of who are our customers. Well, to some extent, you've got various different levels and definitions. It's not just those that are utilizing your services, but you probably think of customers as everybody that is in need of your services, whether or not they're using them. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you should. What kind of reporting do we have to those individuals? And sometimes that takes place in the form of marketing, actually. So these things start blending all together. Because if I'm going out of my way to tell somebody that isn't using our services, that we have services that we're putting in place because we're trying to be responsive to their needs, that actually starts feeling like marketing in some respects. And so you begin to see some of these things combined, right? And dual purpose and such. But there's a lot of different ways to report to customers. Sometimes it can be a formal annual report, sometimes it can be a formal mailer, it can be a report on surveys. Sometimes it can be very casual and almost face-to-face with a certain company or a certain
like
group.
newsletters and all that stuff that you share, like all the exciting things and the
It's our impact,
Yeah.
you know.
that's
How many
going
people
on.
we're touching, how we're utilizing the money.
Yeah.
Donors,
Well,
the
that
donors is our customer.
Exactly. You've got donors that are investing. They're buying something from you. They're buying the ability to feel part of something important that's making a positive impact. It's another way of looking at it. But when somebody's giving you money, it is charitable, it's wonderful. But you're giving them something back that's incredible, which is that opportunity to be a player in making other people's lives better. And that is a neat thing to be able to buy. And I'm grateful that you would give us that opportunity to purchase it. When you begin to think of it in those terms, it changes the dynamic a little bit, doesn't it? And so you can have a lot of different ways that you can report. Sometimes it can be very casual. You could be just talking to individuals. Hey, I remember last time we talked, you said when you're going to start doing this. Just want to let you know we've kind of started to do that, or we got this new program coming online. In other words, I think this is one that probably comes natural to you. The only thing I'd suggest here is to maybe even think more deliberately about it as a reporting practice. And just to remember the great power that comes in that. Because again, it just reinforces how serious you are about serving them. And again, I think it's something that you're naturally doing. So we'll move on to the next one.
team.
How about this one? I'm sure you're all constantly reporting to each other, right? What might this look like? This could look at a lot of different ways. There really aren't any wrong answers. What do you think? What might outside inside our reporting look toward a peer look like?
Well, like maybe the other day when I was doing the home delivered meals budget, and I asked Chef Jeff over there, I said, how much are we getting charged for, you know, how much are you charging for the meals, or how's it going? Like, it doesn't look like it's, you know, right, or how are we doing it? And then he came back with me about what he thinks that they're gonna charge, and then I checked with the finance department, so we're all kind of all checking in with each other to make sure that we're all on the same page and doing it the right way.
Yeah, John, that's right. You're absolutely right. And all we're doing is just kind of expanding and working on those other ways to do it as well, but that's a great example. Sometimes this one is the most difficult because at the end of the day, if that peer doesn't fit within our job description, we're not doing anything specifically for them or thinking of them when we're doing our job description. Therefore, what do we have to be reporting on? So usually it's not part of our regular function anyway. And so we're actually asking you now here to think of a report. How would you report to a peer whom you might not actually be doing anything proactively for? So what would you report on? It's not something that's built into our cycle, into a rhythm of how we function organizationally, perhaps. I think that you would probably be doing, I think any of you in here, if somebody, a peer were to come along and say, hey, would you mind doing this or helping us out? I think anybody would do that. But again, as you become acquainted with each other's outside triangles on a peer-to-peer basis, it naturally brings up that desire to be helpful. You see opportunities to be helpful. Once you truly decide you want to be helpful, you think back about, all right, what can I do? How can I change what I'm doing within my job description is easier for them? And as you're involved in those activities, the reporting back would be simply letting them know in some capacity, some form and function. Hey, just wanted to let you know, I know we talked about this before and we had this meeting together. I talked to you about possibly doing this. Just want to let you know where that sits right now. It looks like we're going to be able to pull it off. We're going to be able to make this change. Let me know if that's helpful. We'll kind of keep our eyes on it. We're not talking about sitting down and you know, creating a 7-B CR form. Wow. Right? We're talking about finding a way to intentionally make sure that we are reporting to those that we're truly attempting to be helpful for. That's all. Okay? Any other ways you think we could go about doing this? Any other thoughts pop in your head about reporting to peers? How else could it be done?
I think when you have your team meetings,
What would that be like if we had a team meeting and said, let's go ahead and start it off. Just go ahead and just start report back to some of the peers that you've been trying to make some changes toward and help and think about. Let's just go around the room and go ahead and take a moment to report to whoever or whichever individual you're in the process of working. What kind of a message would that send? That changes things a bit, doesn't it?
Yes.
Let's just do it really quick. Let's just take 10 seconds, just really quick, give an update on where you're at, report it back to the peers. Because again, it would be helpful for the rest of us to know what activity is taking place there, because there might be a way we can jump in to be helpful as well. But, oh, okay, yeah. Gwen, we talked about last time, you were mentioning this is what's going on in yours, and I realized that I didn't really think about it much before, but we're affected this way. And so we started to make some of these changes. I kind of want to just let you know, had a funny experience, tried to do this, didn't work out so well. So now we're going to shift gears. We're going to try this way. Let's just be touching base so we can make sure that that's helpful. There's a report that just took place there as far as my activity and my desire to be helpful. These things don't have to take a lot of time. But what does that begin to do to the culture and to the mindset and to the way that we think about each other? Do we begin to feel more accountable for each other's success? That's where you're going to go, isn't it? Okay. We do. We do. And isn't that powerful when we begin to feel accountable toward each other? What does that mean about the way that we're thinking about our organization?
Bringing it all together as one.
Yeah, we're all in it together, right? We can talk about those things. We can say those things, but until we're actually holding ourselves accountable for that, it's all just hopeful talk, right? Okay, all right, we won't go on that too much. Let's go to the next one. What about this one? Is this like a shifting of the tables? We go in and report to our direct reports. What might this look like? I'm not going to say anything on this one. Let's just get a review. What do you think? What might outside inside out reporting look like toward a direct report?